welcome back to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the one and only Powerpuff Girls / JoJo's Bizarre Adventure recap and discussion podcast. I'm Raven.
And I'm Alison.
Today's episodes we will be discussing with the Powerpuff Girls are Major Competition and Mr. MoJo's Rising. We are about halfway through season 1 of the Powerpuff Girls here. And I guess that means pretty soon we will be on part 1 of JoJo Phantom Blood. It's going to be exciting. We can get started talking about Major Competition if you want.
Okay. The episode starts off with the narrator in a panic because the town is on fire. The fire is put out before the Powerpuff Girls can help, but who saves the day? The town's villains name different names, but the girls ask his name, and he introduces himself as Major Man. He has blonde Johnny Bravo hair and is wearing a red, white, and blue supersuit with a big M on the chest and a flowing cape. He is very tall and muscular. Some robbers show up holding an old woman hostage, and Major Man saves the day. The town's villains are enthralled. The song Major Man plays with a montage of all his heroics. So some of his powers we see: he can fly, he has heat vision, and he is strong. So after Major Man shows up, the girls aren't receiving any calls for help. When the phone finally rings, it's the mayor, and he basically breaks up with the Powerpuff Girls. The professor is even a fan. He calls the girls to look at the TV while wearing a Major Man mask. While being awarded by the town, Major Man slips that he knows about the crimes ahead of time. Because of this, the girls decide to follow him. He kicks a dog into the street, then causes destruction in order to save it from being hit. The girls know they must publicly expose him. The people grow bored with Major Man when a big Godzilla-like creature shows up that he is unprepared for. The town's villains and the narrator have forgotten the girls' names when they show up to help. Major Man admits all his heroics were fake and begs for their help. The girls defeat the monster and kick out Major Man. The town apologizes. It's revealed that the girls set up the Godzilla monster named Fred. He asks them to be less rough next time. The narrator says he knew all along Major Man was a fraud. So this episode first aired January 6, 1999. Major Man was voiced by Jeff Bennett, who also voices Johnny Bravo. And in some of the places where we see groups of citizens, we can see George Jetson in the crowd. Do you have anything to add before we get to the question?
Major Man, obviously, he sucks, but his theme song was surprisingly catchy.
Major Man. Okay, so my question is, what would my generic superhero name be? Since you call me Lady, I went with Legendary Lady. Nothing super special there, but that's the whole point.
I actually came up with 3. 2 I went with alliteration, and the other one I did not. But I went with Cat Person instead of Catwoman, Petty Person, and Paranormal Person.
Oh, okay.
I just thought those would be silly. I can be petty sometimes, and Paranormal Person, I'm just very into like ghosts and cryptids and stuff. I very much want to have like a podcast where we just talk about like all the cryptids throughout the U.S. But anyways.
And I guess with Major Man having like the red, white, and blue suit, he really kind of played up on, like, the patriotic, he played up being patriotic. Like, they showed the Statue of Liberty during the Major Man song. And then someone at one point says something like, I don't think he was really even a major. So, like, he was in the army. So next we'll move on to Mr. MoJo's Rising.
We start out in the professor's lab where he noodles with nature. Before he can actually do that, however, he's wonked over the head and captured. The girls rush down to the basement laboratory to tattle on Buttercup, but encounter the crime scene. JoJo left behind an elaborate and overly explained ransom note, and the girls race to his volcano lair to save for the professor. When they get there, the professor is trapped in an elaborate device, and when they demand that he not hurt the professor, Mojo says that he wouldn't hurt his own father. The girls are dumbfounded by this reveal, and Mojo explains that he was well loved by the professor until the girls were born. The explosion of Chemical X gave Mojo powers too, but his superintelligence went unnoticed in comparison to the girls' vast array of superpowers and abilities. He felt abandoned by the professor and vowed to dedicate his life to villainy. Professor explains that he does remember a lab monkey named JoJo, but remembers very little before the girls brightened his life. Mojo demands that in order for the professor to make up for the past, he must grant Mojo the girls' powers, to which the professor quickly agrees. Almost too quickly, honestly. Professor builds a contraption with MoJo that is able to copy the girls' powers and give them to Mojo. But as soon as Mojo gets a taste of his newfound powers, he almost immediately betrays Professor Utonium. With his already advanced intellect combined with his new powers, he's quickly able to defeat the girls by using their own powers against them. He plans to rule the world with his gifts and even goes as far to destroy his own lab experiments, saying that they are useless to him now. Meanwhile, the professor lies helpless on the floor in the midst of destruction, mumbling to himself as he slowly begins to remember what really happened the night the girls were born. Professor Utonium calls out to JoJo and says he remembered that he was actually a terrible lab assistant and he had to throw him out the day the girls were created. He tells Mojo that his destructive behavior hasn't changed much, and then recalls something else that happened that fateful day. JoJo was the one who caused Professor Utonium to accidentally add Chemical X into the perfect little girl formula. The professor declares that JoJo is also partially responsible for creating the Powerpuff Girls. In shock, realizing that he created his own nemesis, Mojo can only mumble to himself, and in that state, Utonium and the girls are able to remove Mojo's powers and send him on his way. They taunt him that he is family, Utonium calling him son, Buttercup calling him dad. All Mojo can say as the episode ends is, "It was me," over and over again. So this episode has a similar name to the song lyrics Mr. Mojo Rising and the song LA Woman by The Doors. And it is also the only episode where Mojo wins a battle against the girls, at least according to the wiki. That could be wrong. The wiki isn't always accurate, but... So my question for the episode this week is, which other PPG villain's origin story do you wish the show explored? We really don't get to see any of the villains' origins explored, except I think Mojo and later on the Rowdy Rough Boys. So I honestly think it would be really cool if we could see like the Gangrene Gang's origin story, like how did they meet each other, how did they become green, all that. I want to know. Maybe I'm the only one who wants to know, but they're my favorites.
I mean, probably everyone's origin story, if they're gonna be on the show more than once, would be interesting to know. But I went with him just because he's so interesting and mysterious, and he just seems to have like crazy powers. So I'd like to know more about where him came from. And I liked during the episode how Bubbles was upset to know that they used to have a pet monkey.
Yeah, that was cute. Bubbles was so concerned about that.
And it was a little alarming how quickly the professor just took Mojo's word and everything. Like, he vaguely remembered a monkey, but especially when we've seen Mojo previously be a villain, and then he just is ready to give him all the powers that the girls have. He's easily talked into stuff.
Yeah, he is fairly gullible. We kind of saw that with telephonies as well when he stayed online for the entire episode to get his $10 million. And I think also then, because you've realized that Mojo was sort of like one of his creations as well, and he loves his kids, he wanted to do something for his kid, basically. Because he felt like he had accidentally neglected him.
He should have gave the girls super intelligence then, too, at the same time.
Alright. So, next week we will be discussing in our 8th episode, Paste Makes Waste and Eyesore. So yeah, if you've been listening to the podcast so far and you've been enjoying it, it would be super cool if you could subscribe to us if you haven't already, and leave a review. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment. Maybe talk about your answers to our questions this week. Tell us some little bits and tidbits about the episode maybe we didn't discuss, or that you found interesting or funny or cute or whatever. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.
Bye.